Welcome, space traveler. We meet here in the quiet expanse between thought and wonder, where the velvet darkness of space cradles the mind and the silent, spinning rings of Saturn become a gateway to infinite reflection. Whether you arrive burdened by the noise of the day or light with star-lit curiosity, lay down your need to know, to name, to define. This is a sanctuary not for answers, but for awe. When you gaze upward on a clear night and find that golden jewel suspended in the black, do you feel the subtle pull of its mystery? The quiet sense that you are looking not just upon a planet, but upon a question written in ice and light. You stand at the edge of a profound cosmic truth, where grandeur and impermanence spin together in a billion-year waltz, where beauty is born from cataclysm, and where solitude echoes more deeply than any sound. We are not merely stargazing tonight. We are learning to listen to the whispers of gravity that sculpt endless order from chaos, to the patient, inevitable rhythm of formation and decay, from the shattered moon that might have birthed the splendor, to the slow, graceful rain of ice falling even now into Saturn's atmosphere. Each moment of this ringed existence tells a story of transformation. This celestial marvel is not a static painting hung in the gallery of the heavens. It is a living process, a meditation on time itself, both ancient and fleeting, both monumental and delicate. But first, take a quiet moment and tell me, where does the cosmos find you tonight? The real Saturn, perhaps, hidden behind clouds or city glare, yet felt in the imagination. However you define yourself in this moment, as a thinker, a dreamer, a seeker of peace, I invite you to loosen that definition now, to imagine yourself not as a fixed point, but as a conscious witness to a universe that is both indifferent and intimately beautiful. Here, you'll discover that Saturn's rings are more than an astronomical phenomenon. They are a mirror. They reflect back the elegance of physical laws, the poetry of cycles, and the quiet courage in accepting that all things, even wonders of such scale, are passing. That your own life, with its struggles and joys, is also part of this cosmic rhythm, arising, shining, and gently returning, moment by moment. So, breathe deeply, in and out, and let the distance between you and that faraway giant soften. Let the concerns of the day drift away like stray particles, and allow the mind to settle into orbit around a deeper calm. We are about to embark on a journey not across space, but through perspective, a gentle exploration of how the silent, majestic dance around a planet millions of miles away can illuminate the dance within your own heart, until the boundary between observer and observed begins to beautifully, peacefully blur. Shall we begin? We will move as slowly and gracefully as the rings themselves turn, as patiently as a single ice crystal spiraling through the void. We'll wander from their violent birth to their serene dissolution, from the chaos of collision to the harmony of resonance, until the line between understanding Saturn's rings and understanding yourself becomes beautifully, peacefully blurred. In the profound and silent blackness of our solar system, far beyond the warm, golden light of the sun, there exists a world of such breathtaking elegance that it seems less a planet and more a dream. A colossal sphere of swirling, buttery gold, banded with creams and subtle ochres, hangs in the void, a masterpiece of cosmic artistry. But it is not the planet itself that truly captivates the soul. It is the delicate, impossible halo that encircles it. From our distant vantage point, the rings of Saturn appear as a single, pristine line, a brushstroke of luminous pearl paint drawn with perfect precision across the darkness. They are an announcement, a declaration of beauty so pure and so serene that for centuries they were believed to be the ultimate symbol of celestial harmony, a perfect and unchanging fixture in the heavens. Yet as we have learned to listen, to train our most sensitive instruments upon this distant jewel, a whisper has begun to emerge from the silence. It is a subtle, complex murmur, carried not on sound waves, for space is mute, but on waves of data and light. It is the murmur of countless billions of particles, each a tiny moonlet, dancing in a gravitational ballet so intricate it defies full comprehension. And in that murmur, we cannot help but wonder, are the rings of Saturn trying to tell us something? Are they a message frozen in ice and dust, a chronicle of the solar system's violent past, or perhaps a premonition of its distant future? This is not a story of alarm, but of profound contemplation. It is an invitation to drift gently towards the outer solar system, to lose yourself in the soft, ethereal glow of these rings, and to ponder the quiet secrets they have held for eons. To understand the language of the rings, we must first appreciate their sheer, sublime scale, for their beauty is matched only by their immensity. That single, sharp line we see through a telescope is, in truth, a vast cosmic plane, a disk so wide it could contain the space between the Earth and the Moon with room to spare. Yet, for all their incredible breadth, the rings are astonishingly, almost evanescently thin. If we could take a sheet of paper the size of a football field, its proportions would still be stout and clumsy compared to the exquisite fineness of Saturn's rings. They are a celestial ribbon, a veil of ice perhaps no thicker than a 2-story building, wrapped around a giant that is over 70,000 miles across. This incredible thinness is the first clue to their nature. They are not a solid disk, but a vast collection of individual fragments, each following its own lonely orbit around the great planet. They are a river of ice, flowing in a circular current around a gravitational well. Most of these particles are no larger than snowballs or grains of sand, with a few mountain-sized boulders drifting amongst them. Together, they form a cloud of such density that from afar they appear solid, yet if you were to stand upon them, you would find yourself surrounded by a sparse, glittering mist with vast gulfs of empty space between each spinning crystal. Sunlight catches these countless facets, making the entire structure blaze with reflected glory, a spectacle of light that has inspired wonder and mystery since humanity first gazed skyward. The story of how we learn to listen to this whisper is itself a slow, unfolding drama. It began in 1610, when Galileo Galilei first turned his spyglass towards Saturn. His lens was not strong enough to resolve the rings clearly. To his bewildered eyes, the planet appeared to have ears, or perhaps two smaller worlds clinging tightly to its sides. He called them ansae, Latin for handles, and he was deeply puzzled by their appearance and subsequent disappearance a few years later as their angle to Earth changed. It was Christian Huygens, with a better telescope, who half a century later correctly interpreted the geometry of the phenomenon, declaring that Saturn was surrounded by a thin, flat ring, nowhere touching, inclined to the ecliptic. The rings were no longer handles, but a disk. For centuries, that was all we knew. They were a beautiful, static ornament. Then came the spacecraft, our mechanical ambassadors of perception. Pioneer 11 gave us our first fleeting close-up glimpse. Voyager 1 and 2, in their grand tour of the outer planets, flew past in 1980 and 1981 and revealed the rings not as a few solid bands, but as a complex ecosystem of thousands of individual ringlets, like the grooves on a vast cosmic record. They discovered strange, dark spokes that rotated around the rings, braided strands, and gaps cleared by the gravitational influence of tiny, hidden moons. The whisper had become a murmur of immense complexity. Finally, the Cassini mission arrived in 2004, and for 13 years, it did not just fly past, it made Saturn its home. Cassini dove between the rings and the planet itself, tasting their composition, measuring their mass, and listening to their interactions with the planet's magnetic field. It was Cassini that transformed the murmur into a language we could begin to parse, a story we could start to read, written in ice and gravity. As we draw closer, the simple, elegant line fractures into a symphony of structure, a hierarchy of grooves and gaps that speak to the powerful, invisible forces at play. The main rings, labeled not with names, but with the letters of the alphabet assigned in the order of their discovery, unfold like concentric chapters of an ancient text. The faint gossamer D ring clings closest to the planet's cloud tops, an ethereal wisp of material that seems to be slowly raining down upon the giant world. Next, the C ring emerges, a dark and translucent band often called the crepe ring for its faint, gauzy appearance. Then comes the grand stage, the B ring, the brightest and most massive of all, a dazzling expanse of ice that contains the overwhelming majority of the ring material. It is here that the mysterious dark spokes appear and vanish, ghostly radial patterns that may be composed of tiny, electrostatically levitated dust particles, a transient phenomenon painting itself across the ring canvas. Following a profound division known as the Cassini division, a 2,900-mile wide gap of relative emptiness, lies the elegant A ring, another broad and bright plateau of ice. Within the A ring, a small, perfect gap known as the Keeler Gap is shepherded by the tiny moon Daphnis, whose gravitational influence sculpts a delicate scalloped wave pattern in the ring edges, a frozen record of its perpetual orbit. Beyond this, the rings fade into the tenuous F ring, a narrow, braided, and kinked strand held in its precise chaotic dance by two shepherd moons, Prometheus and Pandora, which constantly tug and perturb its particles. Further out still, the G and E rings stretch into the void, vast and diffuse clouds of microscopic dust, their particles so sparse that they are almost invisible, yet they hold their own profound secrets. This intricate architecture is not random. Every gap, every sharp edge, every undulating wave is a signature, a direct consequence of gravity's precise music. The primary composer of this celestial music is, of course, the immense gravitational field of Saturn itself. Its pull is the fundamental rhythm that keeps the ring particles in their orderly orbits, preventing them from flying off into space or collapsing into the planet. But the melody, the complex and beautiful variations, is written by Saturn's myriad moons. This phenomenon is one of the most elegant in all of astrophysics: orbital resonance. Imagine a moon orbiting Saturn. With every completed circuit, it exerts a tiny, consistent gravitational tug on the ring particles below. Now, if a particle's orbit is such that it completes exactly 2 orbits for every 1 orbit of the moon, the tugs happen at the same point in its path every time. Like a child on a swing being pushed at just the right moment, these small, rhythmic tugs add up, amplifying over time. Instead of a random nudge, it becomes a powerful, coherent force. For the ring particle, this repeated, resonant kick acts like a steady gravitational push, effectively clearing out a gap over millions of years. The Cassini division, that vast and striking dark band between the A and B rings, is a pristine example of this phenomenon. It is kept clear and sharp by the gravitational influence of the moon Mimas, whose orbital rhythm is in a precise 2-to-1 Ratian resonance with the particles that would otherwise occupy that space. Every time Mimas orbits Saturn once, those particles orbit twice and feel its pull at the same point until they are gently yet persistently evicted. The rings are thus a dynamic map of these gravitational relationships, a fluid display of orbital mechanics where moons act as shepherds, their gravity carving lanes and sculpting edges in the icy flow, creating a masterpiece of motion that is both constant and endlessly changing. Yet, the story the rings are telling is not one of eternal permanence, but rather of ephemeral beauty. One of the most profound revelations from the Cassini mission was an answer to a question we had long asked. How old are the rings? The prevailing assumption had been that they were ancient, primordial artifacts as old as the solar system itself, perhaps the remnants of a moon that wandered too close to Saturn and was torn apart by tidal forces billions of years ago. But Cassini's delicate measurements told a different, more startling story. By carefully tracking the spacecraft's velocity as it flew through the ring system, scientists could measure the ring's collective gravitational pull and thus their total mass. The results were surprisingly low. Despite their breathtaking scale, the rings are incredibly light for their size. Their purity provided another clue. They are composed of nearly 99% water ice, brilliant and clean, with very little contamination by the dark, rocky dust that perpetually drifts through the solar system. If the rings were ancient, they should have been darkened over billions of years by this cosmic soot, just like the ancient cratered surfaces of asteroids and moons. Their brilliance suggests a much younger age. The evidence now points to a cataclysm that occurred perhaps only 100 to 200 million years ago, a mere eye blink in the 4.5 billion year history of our solar system. The reign of the dinosaurs on Earth had already begun when the rings of Saturn most likely first graced the night sky. This means we live in a privileged era, a moment in cosmic time where a giant planet in our neighborhood wears a crown of unimaginable splendor. But it also means this crown is temporary. The rings are not a permanent fixture, they are a fleeting spectacle, and we are here, by chance, to witness it. This realization of the ring's youth and transience invites a deeper, more meditative contemplation of their very nature. They are not a static sculpture, but a vibrant, dynamic weather system of ice, a slow-motion tempest where the forces of creation and destruction are locked in an eternal, graceful dance. Within the seemingly placid bands, individual particles are in constant motion, each following its own elliptical path around Saturn, colliding with its neighbors in a gentle, ceaseless chatter. These collisions are not violent crashes, but rather soft, whispering taps, like ice cubes gently clinking in a glass. They serve to smooth out the orbits, keeping the disk fantastically thin and acting as a kind of friction that would, over immense stretches of time, cause the rings to slowly spread outward like a drop of ink diffusing in water. This natural tendency to disperse is counteracted by the gravitational nudges from Saturn's moons, the shepherds that herd the particles, confining them into their precise bands and preventing the entire beautiful structure from evaporating into a diffuse cloud. The rings breathe, they oscillate and warp. As they orbit, they can develop spontaneous, swirling spiral density waves, much like the spiral arms of a galaxy. These waves are not composed of the same material moving together, but are rather a pattern, a ripple that moves through the ring material, a compression wave that propagates through the countless particles, causing them to briefly bunch together before spreading out again, a slow, rhythmic exhalation across millions of miles. It is a dance of incredible complexity, where every partner, from the smallest speck of ice to a moon the size of a city, moves in response to the music of gravity, creating a system that is both chaotic and exquisitely ordered. Amidst this dance, some of the most captivating performers are the tiny moonlets, some no larger than a kilometer across, that are themselves embedded within the rings. These are not the well-known shepherd moons that orbit outside the rings, but bodies that actually form and reside within the ring plane itself. Some of these create breathtakingly beautiful features, like the propellers discovered by the Cassini spacecraft. A propeller is a disturbance in the ring particles created by a tiny, unseen moonlet far too small to clear a full gap like the moon Daphnis does in the Keeler Gap. Instead, its gravity is just strong enough to create a partial S-shaped clearing in the particles around it, a shape that, from a distance, looks precisely like a simple two-bladed airplane propeller frozen in the ice. These propellers are not static. Cassini was able to observe them over years, watching them move, following their own orbital paths around Saturn. They were given names inspired by pioneering aviators, Blériot, Earhart, Santos Dumont, a poetic nod to their graceful gliding journey through the rings. These features are more than just curiosities. They are a glimpse into the processes of planet formation. Scientists believe they are witnessing in real time how small particles can clump together under their own gravity within a protoplanetary disk, the early stages of how planets coalesce from the dust around a young star. The rings of Saturn are thus a living laboratory, a scaled-down model of the very processes that built our solar system, playing out before our eyes in a slow, silent ballet. And yet, for all this beauty and activity, the rings are also a scene of quiet dissolution. The same gravitational forces that orchestrate their dance are also slowly pulling them apart. Micrometeoroid bombardment is a constant, gentle rain. Tiny particles from the outer solar system pepper the rings at high velocities, chipping away at the ice, slowly grinding it down into ever finer dust. Furthermore, the rings are not immune to the pull of the planet they adorn. Particles in the innermost D ring, and to a lesser extent the C ring, are subject to a faint but persistent drag from Saturn's extended upper atmosphere, its exosphere. This tenuous gas acts as a brake, causing these particles to slowly lose energy, their orbits decaying until they spiral inward, destined to fall into the great gas giant below. This creates a literal ring rain, a slow, constant shower of ice particles pulled by magnetic field lines that is falling into Saturn's atmosphere at a rate that could fill an Olympic-sized swimming pool every half hour. This process, while slow, is relentless. It is the reason the rings have a lifespan. They are actively dissipating, draining away like an hourglass. Their brilliant particles are not permanent. Each one is a temporary guest in Saturn's sky, eventually returning to the planet from which they perhaps once came. This gives the entire magnificent structure a profound poignancy. We are not looking at a monument, but at a river. We are not seeing a thing, but a process, a slow, beautiful, and inevitable fading. If the rings are indeed a river, a flowing system of incredible beauty with a defined beginning and end, then we are drawn irresistibly to the question of its source. Where did this temporary crown originate? What great cosmic event, a mere 100 million years ago, could have provided the immense quantity of ice that now shimmers around Saturn? The rings hold the clues to their own origin story, etched in their composition, their structure, and their dynamics. The prevailing theories are not tales of gentle formation, but of violence and chaos, of celestial bodies meeting their end to create something of transcendent beauty. The leading hypothesis suggests that the rings are the scattered remains of a former moon, an icy world that once circled Saturn in a peaceful orbit for billions of years. This moon, perhaps similar to the planet's current icy satellites like Enceladus or Dione, was doomed by the subtle, relentless mechanics of gravity. As it interacted with its sibling moons, its orbit may have gradually shifted, slowly decaying until it crossed a critical threshold, a point of no return known as the Roche limit. This is the distance from a planet within which the tidal forces pulling an object apart become stronger than the gravitational forces holding it together. Inside this zone, a moon cannot remain a moon. Saturn's immense gravity would have stretched and tortured this doomed world, pulling more forcefully on its near side than its far side, until the entire body was torn asunder in a cataclysmic event. The moon was not simply smashed, it was unraveled. Its material shredded into a cloud of fragments that quickly spread along the orbital path of its final moments. What was once a cohesive world became a swirling disk of debris, a funeral shroud of ice that would, over millennia, settle into the elegant flat rings we see today. Another, equally dramatic possibility involves a great celestial collision, a chance encounter of staggering violence in the quiet outer reaches of the solar system. In this story, a wandering body from the distant Kuiper Belt, or a stray comet, a relic from the solar system's early days, was pulled from its lonely path by Saturn's gravitational influence. On a trajectory that could only end one way, this icy interlocker did not simply impact Saturn itself, but instead struck one of its existing moons with unimaginable force. The collision would have been a slow-motion explosion by human standards, shattering event on a geologic scale. The target moon would have been vaporized and pulverized, its substance ejected into orbit around Saturn. Much of this material would have fallen back to the planet or escaped entirely, but a significant fraction of the ice and rock, caught in the precise balance of velocity and gravity, would have remained, spreading out to form a new ring system. The energy of the impact would have melted and shattered the ice, explaining its initial purity, as rocky core material might have been lost or fallen inward, leaving behind primarily the icy mantle of the destroyed moon to glitter in the sun. This theory paints the rings as a cosmic accident, a splash of frozen debris from a catastrophic crash, a scar that healed into a jewel. It suggests that the beauty we see is the aftermath of a terrible and random event, a reminder that even in the serene darkness of space, chaos can give birth to order, and destruction can create unparalleled splendor. There are other, more subtle whispers in the data. Some scientists propose that the rings are not the product of a single cataclysmic event, but rather the remnants of a much older ring system that has been continuously replenished. In this view, the rings could indeed be ancient, but their bright, fresh appearance is maintained by the ongoing destruction of cometary material or the grinding down of larger embedded moonlets, a constant process of renewal that masks their true age. However, the compelling evidence for their low mass and high purity make the case for a relatively recent singular origin event profoundly strong. The very youth of the rings suggests that our solar system, even now, in its comfortable middle age, is not a placid and settled place. Great landscape-altering events can still occur. The peaceful clockwork of orbits can be dramatically interrupted. The rings of Saturn in their serene and silent rotation are a testament to this potential for violence and change. They are a monument to a lost world, a moon that no longer exists, whose only epitaph is a billion fragments of ice, each catching the sunlight for a brief moment before continuing their slow dance toward dissolution. They remind us that beauty is often born of upheaval, and that even the most stable-looking systems can bear the marks of a turbulent and dramatic history. As we ponder the violent birth of these rings, from the quiet dissolution of a moon, our attention is naturally drawn to the many other moons that continue to dance around Saturn, for their fates are intimately intertwined with the ring system itself. Saturn is a kingdom, with the planet as its sovereign and over 80 known moons as its courtiers, each orbiting in a delicate balance of gravitational influence. These moons are not merely passive bystanders to the ring spectacle. They are its architects, its shepherds, and its eventual inheritors. They range from the gigantic Titan, a world with a thick atmosphere and methane lakes larger than any moon in the solar system, to tiny, irregularly shaped rocks barely a kilometer across, captured asteroids that now trace elongated paths around the gas giant. But it is the small, icy moons that orbit close to the rings, often embedded within or just beyond them, that hold the most direct conversation with the icy disk. Moons like Pan, Daphnis, and Atlas orbit within the rings themselves, nestled within gaps they have cleared. Their gravity not only carves out these empty lanes, but also sculpts the edges of the rings into exquisite, undulating waves. As these shepherd moons travel, their gravitational pull creates a wake, a ripple pattern that propagates through the ring particles, a frozen wave that traces the moon's path like a cosmic signature. Watching these patterns is like watching the rings breathe. It is a visible, tangible manifestation of the invisible force of gravity, a slow, rhythmic pulse that gives the entire structure a sense of fluid, living motion. Beyond the main rings, other moons play a different but equally crucial role. Enceladus, a bright, icy world only about 310 miles across, is one of the most geologically active bodies in the solar system. From its south pole, enormous plumes of water vapor and ice crystals erupt from a subsurface ocean, jetting into space with tremendous force. This constant, gentle eruption does not just create a faint, misty halo around Enceladus itself, it is the primary source of Saturn's vast and ethereal E-ring. The microscopic particles of ice from these cryovolcanoes are flung into orbit, where they spread out to form a gigantic donut-shaped cloud that encompasses the orbits of Enceladus and several other moons. This ring is not a static structure, but a constantly renewing phenomenon, a visible exhalation of a hidden ocean. Every particle in the E-ring is a snowflake from Enceladus, a tiny messenger carrying the story of a warm, salty sea hidden beneath miles of ice, a potential abode for life. This process creates a beautiful cycle of creation and destruction, a cosmic loop where a moon breathes out a ring and the ring particles, in turn, eventually spiral inward or coat the surfaces of other moons. The rings and the moons are in a constant, silent exchange, a sharing of material that binds the entire Saturnian system together in a relationship of exquisite interdependence. And then there is Titan, the giant, shrouded in a thick orange haze, a world apart from the delicate ice of the rings. Yet even Titan may hold a key to understanding the ring's narrative. Its complex atmosphere, rich with organic molecules that rain down upon its surface, is a laboratory for chemistry that may mimic the early Earth. While Titan itself is not a direct participant in the ring dynamics, its presence, its immense gravity, exerts a stabilizing influence on the entire system. Furthermore, the complex gravitational interactions between Titan, the other major moons, and the rings are a perpetual dance that helps maintain the structure we see. The stability of the rings, the precise locations of gaps, the very spacing of the moons themselves, all of it is governed by an intricate web of orbital resonances, a gravitational harmony that keeps the system from descending into chaos. The moons are the keepers of this harmony. They are the musicians in the orchestra, each playing their part, their gravitational tugs and pulls, creating the complex, beautiful music to which the ring particles dance. Without these moons, The rings would be a diffuse, featureless cloud, their particles slowly spreading into oblivion. The moons give the rings their form, their structure, and their breathtaking beauty. They are the artists, and the rings are their ever-changing, ephemeral masterpiece, a collaboration between countless worlds on a scale almost too vast to comprehend. The intricate gravitational ballet between the rings and the moons suggests a system of profound harmony, yet this very interplay is also the mechanism of the rings' eventual decay. The same forces that sculpt their beauty are orchestrating their slow farewell. This process of dissipation, this gentle cosmic rain, is not a violent collapse, but a gradual, almost imperceptible fading, like mist evaporating under a morning sun. The primary agent of this dissolution is a phenomenon known as ring rain. As the countless ice particles in the rings journey around Saturn, they are not isolated in a perfect vacuum. They move through an environment that is, in fact, the planet's own exceedingly tenuous outer atmosphere, its exosphere. This atmosphere is so thin it would be considered a superb vacuum here on Earth, yet it exists. For the tiniest particles of ice dust, this sparse gas exerts a faint but constant drag, a gentle friction that acts as a perpetual brake. With each orbit, these microscopic particles lose a minuscule amount of energy, causing their orbits to decay ever so slightly. Slowly, inexorably, they begin to spiral inward, drawn by the relentless pull of Saturn's gravity, which now overcomes their orbital momentum. They begin their final descent, a long, slow fall into the giant planet's embrace. This is not a fiery meteor shower, but a silent, frozen drizzle of ice crystals pulled along the lines of Saturn's magnetic field, tracing invisible paths down into the upper cloud decks of the gas giant. This process is not uniform across the rings. It is most pronounced in the innermost regions, particularly in the faint D ring, which acts as the leading edge of this great dissolution. Here, the drag is strongest and the material is most susceptible to its effects. But the influence extends throughout the system. Scientists estimate that this ring rain carries thousands of kilograms of material into Saturn's atmosphere every second, a rate that, while seemingly immense, is still slow enough to allow the rings to persist for millions of years more. This infalling material does not vanish without a trace. As the ice particles plunge deeper into the atmosphere, they vaporize, adding water and other compounds to Saturn's upper atmospheric layers. This extraterrestrial precipitation may influence the chemistry and weather patterns of the planet in subtle ways, a final contribution from the rings to their creator. It is a complete cycle. Material that was once part of a moon is now part of a ring and is ultimately returning to become part of the planet itself. The rings are thus in a state of constant flux. Not a frozen sculpture, but a flowing river, with particles constantly jostling, colliding, breaking apart, and now, at the inner edge, steadily draining away into the great below. Beyond this gravitational and atmospheric drag, another, more subtle process contributes to the ring's erosion: photophoresis. This is a force driven by light itself. As sunlight strikes the ring particles, it heats one side of them. If a particle has a slightly irregular shape or a surface variegated between clean ice and darker dust, one side can become warmer than the other. Molecules of the sparse surrounding gas bounce off the warmer side with more energy than they bounce off the cooler side. This tiny difference in molecular bombardment creates a minuscule net force, a gentle push that can slowly alter the particle's orbit over eons. It is a whisper of a force, utterly dwarfed by gravity, but in the frictionless environment of space, where a nudge can compound over millions of years, it plays a role in the grand, slow-motion dispersal of the ring material. All these processes together, the gravitational nudges from moons that spread the rings outward, the atmospheric drag that pulls them inward, and the subtle push of light, paint a picture of a system striving for equilibrium it will never find. The rings are caught in a slow but inevitable whirlwind of their own dynamics, a beautiful and complex structure that is, from the moment of its creation, beginning to fade, teaching us a profound lesson about the transient nature of even the most majestic cosmic wonders. As we contemplate the slow, graceful dissolution of the rings, a question arises from the silence, not with alarm, but with a soft curiosity. What does this mean for Saturn itself? This constant, gentle rain of ice is not merely a loss for the rings, but a quiet, ongoing offering to the planet, a transfer of matter and energy that subtly shapes the character of the giant's upper atmosphere. Each tiny particle of ice, as it spirals inward along magnetic field lines, eventually reaches a depth where the atmospheric pressure and temperature cause it to vaporize, transforming from a solid crystal into a gaseous cloud of water vapor and other constituents. This infusion of foreign material is not a cataclysm, but a delicate seasoning, altering the chemistry of Saturn's high skies in ways that are only beginning to be understood. The added water can interact with other atmospheric components, potentially seeding the formation of new types of cloud layers or influencing the complex photochemistry driven by ultraviolet light from the distant sun. It is a process of cosmic recycling on a grand scale, where the remains of a lost moon are gradually being reincorporated into the body of the planet it once orbited, completing a celestial cycle of astonishing elegance. This gentle precipitation may also have more tangible, though still subtle, effects on Saturn's weather. The infusion of material and the minute amount of energy released as the particles ablate and vaporize could influence the intricate patterns of winds and storms that band the planet. Saturn's atmosphere is a dynamic tapestry of jet streams, eddies, and long-lived storm systems, like the Great Hexagonal pattern at its North Pole. The addition of water and other compounds from the rings, particularly at specific latitudes where the magnetic field lines guide the ring rain, to descend could create localized variations in atmospheric density, temperature, or opacity. It might act as a faint, high-altitude catalyst for processes we have yet to discern. While it is unlikely to cause dramatic, visible changes from our distant vantage point, it represents a continuous, low-level interaction between the planet and its most famous feature. They are not separate entities, but a connected system, engaged in a slow, silent exchange. The planet gives the rings their shape and their rhythm through its gravity, and the rings, in return, offer a silent, frozen tribute that falls as a perpetual, gentle snow upon the cloud tops below, a testament to their inseparable bond. Looking even further into the deep future, the fate of the rings is inextricably linked to the fate of the entire Saturnian system. The same gravitational interactions that currently sculpt the rings and shepherd their particles will continue to evolve. The moons themselves are slowly migrating outward due to their tidal interactions with Saturn, a process that gradually changes their orbital resonances with the ring material. Over hundreds of millions of years, these shifts will alter the gravitational pressures that currently confine the rings into their sharp, beautiful bands. The very forces that create the Cassini division and other gaps will change, potentially allowing the rings to spread more freely or to be sculpted into new, as yet unimaginable forms before their final dissipation. Furthermore, the same processes that led to the rings' creation, catastrophic collisions or moon disruptions, could, by chance, happen again. A stray asteroid or comet could strike one of the inner moons, perhaps pulverizing it and creating a new temporary ring system, a fresh cascade of ice to replace the one that is fading. The Saturnian system is not a static painting. It is a slow-moving film with frames that span millions of years. We are witnessing but a single beautiful scene in an epic that has been playing for billions of years and will continue for billions more. The rings are a highlight of this act, a breathtaking spectacle. But the play itself, the gravitational dance of moons, the slow evolution of orbits, the occasional cosmic accident, will continue long after the last ring particle has spiraled into the cloud decks and the crown of Saturn has vanished, leaving behind only the gentle banded giant, holding its court of moons in the silent dark. In this grand slow-motion narrative of creation and dissolution, we find ourselves drawn to a quieter, more introspective question. What is the composition of these rings? Not merely as ice and dust, but as a detailed chemical record. The answer, revealed through the patient analysis of sunlight reflected from their countless facets, tells a story of surprising purity and subtle complexity. The rings are overwhelmingly composed of water ice, a fact that accounts for their brilliant reflective whiteness. This is not the compact, dense ice of a winter pond, but a much more porous and fragile material, often likened to the structure of a fresh snowfall or fine powder. The individual particles range from microscopic grains to boulders several meters across, and most are not solid ice cubes, but rather loose agglomerations, like dirty snowballs, with low density and high surface area. This physical structure is crucial to understanding their behavior. It makes them highly susceptible to the faint forces of light pressure and electrostatic levitation, allowing for the formation of enigmatic features like the dark spokes that drift across the B-ring. Their surfaces are constantly being sandblasted by micrometeorites and altered by the radiation trapped in Saturn's magnetic field, processes that can create a rime of more complex chemistry on their outer layers. Yet, for all their icy purity, the rings are not perfectly clean. Spectrometers have detected traces of other materials mixed in with the water ice, like faint spices in a vast recipe of snow. There's dark, rocky silicates, the dust of the ancient solar system. There are simple organic compounds, molecules built around carbon atoms, likely delivered by the constant rain of micrometeorites from the outer solar system. Perhaps most intriguingly, there appears to be a component that remains stubbornly unidentified, a spectral signature that does not neatly match any known compound. Some scientists speculate it could be iron-based compounds or particular types of complex organics we have not yet fully characterized. These impurities are not distributed evenly. The darker, less reflective rings, like the C ring and the Cassini division, contain a higher fraction of this non-icy material, giving them their translucent, smoky appearance compared to the brilliant white of the B ring. This variation is a clue, suggesting different formation histories or different exposure to contaminating dust across the various ring regions. The rings, therefore, are not a monolithic entity, but a varied geological formation with different provinces possessing their own unique chemical character, a subtle gradient of purity and stain across millions of miles. This chemical inventory is a frozen ledger, a record of the ring's environment and history. The relative absence of dark material tells us the rings are young. There has not been enough time for the steady infall of cosmic dust to significantly darken them. The presence of specific organic molecules hints at the types of primitive materials that were present in the outer solar system at the time of the ring's formation, and that continue to arrive today. The unidentified component whispers of chemistry happening on the surfaces of the ring particles themselves, perhaps catalyzed by solar ultraviolet radiation or impacts from energetic particles. They are not dead lumps of ice. They are active, if incredibly slow, chemical laboratories. Every particle is a tiny world, its surface a site of minuscule changes, its composition a palimpsest written by radiation, collisions, and the gentle accretion of stardust. By reading this chemical story, we are not just analyzing the rings, we are sampling the building blocks of the solar system, the raw materials from which moons and planets were forged, now preserved in a glittering, rotating museum of ice, slowly sharing their secrets before they return to the planet from which they came. The gentle, ceaseless murmur of the rings, their subtle composition and dynamic weather, invites us to consider a more profound question. What can this ephemeral system teach us about the cosmos beyond Saturn? The answer lies in recognizing that Saturn's rings are not a unique miracle, but a local, magnificent example of a universal phenomenon. They are a scaled-down, nearby laboratory for processes that shape solar systems across the galaxy. Throughout the universe, astronomers have discovered thousands of planets orbiting other stars, exoplanets. And around many young stars, powerful telescopes have detected vast, swirling disks of gas and dust, the primordial material from which planets are born. These protoplanetary disks are the infant versions of solar systems, and in their structure and dynamics, we see echoes of Saturn's rings, albeit on a vastly grander scale. They exhibit gaps, spiral density waves, and bright rings, all thought to be carved by the gravitational influence of young, forming planets within the disk. By studying the intricate mechanics of how a tiny moon like Daphnis sculpts the Keeler gap, or how Mimas maintains the Cassini division, we refine our models of how a giant planet, several times the size of Jupiter, might clear a vast lane in a disk light years across. Saturn's rings provide a detailed, close-up model of the gravitational sculpting that is fundamental to planet formation everywhere. This connection extends beyond mere analogy. The physical processes at work within the rings, collisions between particles, the clumping and fragmentation of material, the way electrostatic forces can lift fine dust, are the same processes that governed the earliest stages of our own solar system's formation. Before the planets coalesced, the space around our young sun was filled with a similar protoplanetary disk of gas and dust. Within that disk, tiny particles stuck together, collided, and grew into ever larger bodies, from pebbles to planetesimals to planets. In Saturn's rings, we see this process frozen in a later stage, and in some cases even happening in real time. The propeller moonlets, those tiny bodies trying to clear their own paths within the ring material, are a direct glimpse into how the first building blocks of planets began to form. They represent the very initial steps of accretion, where gravity begins to pull a swarm of particles together into a coherent body. The rings show us both the constructive and destructive sides of this process. While some particles clump, others are shattered by collisions, maintaining a delicate equilibrium that prevents the entire disk from coalescing into a single moon. It is a dynamic balance between creation and dissolution, a miniature drama that played out on a colossal scale 4.5 billion years ago to build the worlds we know today. Thus, the rings of Saturn are a bridge. They connect the present to the past, offering a living fossil of the solar system's youth. They connect the local to the cosmic, providing a working model to understand the distant disks we see around other stars. And they connect the certain to the mysterious, showing us processes we can measure and model right here in our celestial backyard, which in turn helps us interpret the faint, blurry data we receive from stellar nurseries thousands of light years away. By understanding the life cycle of a single ring particle, from its creation and a catastrophic disruption, to its dance and the resonant gaps, to its eventual fall as ring rain, we gain insight into the life cycle of cosmic material on the grandest scales. The rings are a tutorial in orbital mechanics, in fluid dynamics, in collective behavior, written in a language of ice and light. They tell us that the principles of physics are universal, that the same gentle forces of gravity and collision that orchestrate this beautiful disk around Saturn are also at work sculpting galaxies and birthing planets around countless other stars in the silent, dark expanse of the universe. They are a whisper that reminds us we are part of a much larger, coherent, and beautifully physical whole. As we widen our gaze from the specific to the universal, from Saturn's rings to the countless other ringed worlds that dance through the darkness, we find that our solar system holds more than one such jewel. Saturn may wear the most resplendent crown, but it is not alone in its adornment. The other gas giants, Jupiter, Uranus, and Neptune, each possess their own more subtle systems of rings, like faint, ethereal halos glimpsed in the twilight. These rings are not mere copies of Saturn's each. Each system is a unique expression, shaped by its planet's gravity, its family of moons, and its own distinct history. Jupiter's ring system, for instance, is tenuous and dark, composed largely of fine dust particles. Unlike Saturn's brilliant ice, Jupiter's rings are believed to be built from dust kicked up by micrometeorite impacts on the planet's small inner moons like Metis and Adraste. This dust is constantly replenished by these impacts, but also constantly swept away by Jupiter's powerful magnetic field and its shadow, creating a ring that is faint, transient, and delicate, a whisper compared to Saturn's declaration. Further out, the rings of Uranus and Neptune are another story altogether. Discovered only in the late 1970s and 80s, they are dark and narrow, more like a series of etched lines drawn in charcoal around each planet. Uranus's rings are exceptionally narrow and sharp-edged, held in place by the gravitational influence of small shepherd moons we have only begun to catalog. They are also remarkably dark, absorbing most of the sunlight that strikes them, suggesting a composition not of clean ice, but of carbon-rich material, perhaps organically darkened by radiation, similar to the surface of its moon Umbriel. Neptune's rings, meanwhile, appear incomplete, forming faint arcs rather than complete circles. These arcs, clumps of denser material within the rings, were a profound puzzle for astronomers, as the laws of orbital motion dictate that such clumps should spread out evenly around the planet in a matter of years. The solution was found once again in the gentle, persistent pull of a moon. The small moon, Galatea, orbits just inside the ring system, and its gravity acts as a shepherd, its resonances confining the ring particles into these stable, clumpy arcs, a beautiful and precise celestial rhythm, preventing the material from dispersing. Each of these ring systems, so different from Saturn's, tells its own story of creation and maintenance, a story written in the language of impacts, moonlets, and gravity. This celestial menagerie of rings tells us that such structures are not rare anomalies, but rather a natural, perhaps even common outcome of the complex gravitational environments around giant planets. They are a natural phase in the evolution of a planetary system, a testament to the dynamic and often violent processes that occur within them. The variety we see, from the brilliant ice of Saturn to the dark dust of Jupiter and the narrow arcs of Neptune, speaks to the diversity of conditions and histories. Some rings are born from the catastrophic destruction of a moon. Others are continuously built from the dust of countless tiny impacts. Some are ancient and persistent, while others, like Saturn's, may be relatively young and transient. This tells us that planetary systems are not static. They are living, breathing entities, constantly changing, where moons can become rings and rings can feed planets, in a slow, cosmic cycle of transformation. The presence of rings around all four gas giants suggests that our solar system has experienced a rich history of collisions and disruptions, a past filled with chaotic events that have, over billions of years, settled into the more stable, though still evolving, system we see today. The rings are the evidence of that turbulence, the beautiful scars left behind from the solar system's more violent youth, now frozen in silent, graceful orbits. In the silent, sun-dappled expanse of the rings, amidst the gentle collisions and the slow gravitational dances, there exists a phenomenon of such delicate and transient beauty that it seems almost ghostly. The spokes. These are faint, radial, wedge-shaped features that appear to stretch across sections of the B-ring like shadows of unseen hands, rotating around Saturn for a few hours before fading away. They are not physical ridges or elevations in the ring material. Instead, they are regions of fine, microscopic dust particles that have been temporarily levitated above the ring plane, likely by electrostatic forces. The mechanism behind their formation is a beautiful and subtle interplay between Saturn, its rings, and the Sun. As the ring particles orbit, they can become electrically charged by the ultraviolet light from the Sun or by plasma from Saturn's magnetosphere. During the equinox on Saturn, when the ring plane is edge on to the Sun and thus receiving less light, the conditions may become ideal for these charged particles to experience a repulsive force strong enough to lift them slightly away from the larger icy chunks below. This creates a temporary cloud of fine dust that from a distance appears as a dark or bright smudge stretching radially across the rings, a fleeting brushstroke on a cosmic canvas. The appearance and behavior of these spokes are a direct dialogue between the rings and their environment, a conversation mediated by forces beyond gravity. Their transient nature suggests a delicate balance, a system constantly responding to subtle changes in energy. They appear more frequently when Saturn's tilt brings the rings into a position that maximizes certain interactions with the planet's magnetic field or minimizes solar heating. Observing them is like watching the rings breathe a faint periodic sigh, a visible expression of an invisible process. The Voyager spacecraft first discovered them in the 1980s, and they were thought to be a seasonal phenomenon that might vanish entirely. Yet when the Cassini spacecraft arrived years later during a different seasonal phase, the spokes had returned, demonstrating that this beautiful mystery was a recurring, if unpredictable, feature of the ring's life. They are a reminder that even in a system dominated by the immense and predictable force of gravity, there is room for more delicate, ephemeral artistry, for patterns that form and dissolve like thoughts, reminding us that the rings are a dynamic and ever-changing system, responsive to the faintest whispers of energy from their surroundings. Beyond the spokes, other, even more subtle phenomena whisper of the ring's complexity. There are structures called straw in the A-ring, which appears as a subtle, clumpy texture that may be the result of transient gravitational clumping of ring particles, a hint of the constant, low-level aggregation and fragmentation occurring within the disk. There are gentle spiral density waves triggered by the moons that propagate through the rings like ripples on a pond, compressing the particles into bright bands before they spread out again. There are tiny, embedded moonlets that create S-shaped propeller features as they travel, their minimal gravity just enough to perturb their immediate surroundings without clearing a full gap. Each of these features is a sentence in the ring's story, a detail that reveals the physical conditions and the constant, low-level activity within the disk. They show that the rings are not a frozen record, but a living text, with passages that appear and fade with the seasons and the orbital rhythms of the system. To study them is to practice a form of cosmic close reading, to pay attention to the faintest punctuation marks in an epic poem of ice and gravity, to listen for the softest notes in a symphony that has been playing for millions of years, and to appreciate that true understanding lies not just in the grand sweep of the story, but in the quiet, fleeting details that give it texture and life. To truly listen to the rings, to decode the subtle messages they carry on waves of reflected light, we must understand the language of light itself. The primary tool for this celestial conversation is spectroscopy, the art of separating light into its constituent colors, much like a prism creates a rainbow from a beam of sunlight. When sunlight journeys across the solar system to Saturn and strikes the countless particles in the rings, it does not simply bounce back unchanged. Each particle absorbs some wavelengths of light and reflects others, imprinting its chemical signature upon the light that eventually travels all the way back to our telescopes. By capturing this faint, returning light and stretching it out into a spectrum, scientists can read these absorption lines, dark lines in the rainbow where specific wavelengths have been absorbed by specific molecules. It is through this meticulous process that we know the rings are made predominantly of water ice. The spectrum reveals the unmistakable signature of H2O, the same molecule that forms frost on a winter morning, but here, it exists on a scale of almost unimaginable grandeur. The spectrum also reveals what is not there. The telltale signs of abundant rocky material are largely absent, confirming the youthful purity of the rings and helping to tell the story of their violent, icy origin. But the light tells more than just a story of composition. It also whispers secrets about the ring's physical state. The way light scatters off the ring particles reveals their size, shape, and texture. The incredible brightness of the rings indicates that the particles are excellent reflectors, which points to their surfaces being rough and porous, like frost, scattering light in all directions rather than reflecting it like a smooth, dark mirror. The variations in brightness between different rings, the brilliant B ring compared to the fainter, more translucent C ring, speak to differences in density and particle size distribution. By analyzing the polarization of the reflected light, the direction in which its waves oscillate, scientists can infer further details about the microstructure of the particle's surfaces and the spaces between them. Every photon that arrives at our instruments from that great distance is a tiny messenger, carrying a packet of information about the environment from which it came. Patiently, painstakingly, astronomers collect these messengers by the millions, building a statistical picture from countless individual points of data, slowly assembling an understanding of the rings that is as deep as it is awe-inspiring. This conversation with light is not a one-way transmission. It is an ongoing dialogue facilitated by our robotic ambassadors. The Cassini spacecraft, in particular, was equipped to have an intimate dialogue with the rings. It didn't just observe them from a distance. It flew through their fringes, directly sampling the sparse population of dust-sized particles with its cosmic dust analyzer. It used its radio antenna not just for communication, but as a scientific instrument, sending radio signals through the rings back to Earth. By measuring how these signals were attenuated and scattered, scientists could map the ring material's density and particle size distribution with incredible precision, essentially performing a remote ultrasound of the entire structure. Every different wavelength of light, from ultraviolet to radio waves, provides a different piece of the puzzle. Ultraviolet light is sensitive to tenuous gases and tiny grains, while infrared light is ideal for identifying chemical ices, and radio waves can penetrate deeper into the ring layers. By listening to the rings across this entire electromagnetic spectrum, we hear a fuller, richer story, a symphony of data where each instrument plays a different part, all harmonizing to create our evolving understanding of this magnificent, rotating disk of ice, an understanding that is forever deepening with each new observation and each new question asked of the silent, shining data. The story of Saturn's rings is not confined to the present moment, a beautiful snapshot in time. It is a narrative that stretches both backward into a shadowed, violent past and forward into a distant, fading future. To truly comprehend their message, we must consider their entire life cycle, from their dramatic birth to their quiet, inevitable end. Based on the evidence of their youth and purity, Their story likely began with a cataclysm, a shattering event that occurred in the relative recent past of our solar system. The prevailing theory suggests an icy moon, perhaps several hundred kilometers in diameter, strayed too close to Saturn in its orbital dance. Drawn inward by subtle gravitational tugs from its sibling moons, it eventually crossed that fateful boundary known as the Roche limit. Here, the difference in Saturn's gravitational pull on the near and far sides of the moon became a destructive force, overwhelming the moon's own gravity, which struggled to hold its body together. The moon did not simply crack. It was methodically pulled apart, unraveled into a cloud of debris, its substance scattered along the path of its final orbit. This cloud of fragments, a chaotic swirl of ice and rock, would have initially been thick and confused, but over thousands of years, collisions between the particles would have smoothed their orbits, shepherding them into the thin, flat, organized disk we see today. The rings are the scattered remains of a lost world, a celestial phoenix that, in its destruction, created an object of unparalleled beauty. For a time, this new ring system would have been even more massive and spectacular than it is today, a thick, brilliant band of debris. But from the moment of their creation, the forces of dissipation began their work. The constant, gentle rain of material into Saturn's atmosphere started immediately, a slow leakage of the ring's substance. Micrometeorite impacts began to chip away at particles, grinding them down into finer dust and darkening their surfaces with accumulated debris. The gravitational influence of Saturn's moons began to sculpt the disk, clearing gaps and shepherding particles into narrow bands, organizing the chaos into the intricate architecture we now observe. The rings have been in a state of dynamic equilibrium ever since, with processes that spread them out balanced against those that confine them, with creation through the grinding of larger bodies balanced against destruction through ring rain and sputtering. They have settled into a stable, though temporary state of glorious maturity, a phase that may last for another 100 million years, a breathtakingly beautiful interim in their cosmic existence. But this phase cannot last forever. The current balance is temporary. The slow drain of ring rain, while gradual, is relentless. Models suggest that over the next several 100 million years, this process will accelerate as the rings spread and more material reaches the inner regions where atmospheric drag is strongest. The innermost rings will fade first, their material vanishing into the giant planet. The more massive outer rings will persist longer, but they too will eventually succumb. The brilliant B ring will grow dimmer and more diffuse, its sharp edges blurring. The intricate structures, the gaps, the waves, the propellers, will slowly dissolve as the gravitational influences that shape them lose their grip on the increasingly sparse material. Long before the last particle falls, the rings will have lost their defining clarity and brilliance, becoming a faint, ghostly haze encircling the planet. Eventually, that too will vanish. The silence will return. Saturn will once again be a simple, banded gas giant, its magnificent crown gone, its court of moons continuing their silent dance around it, the only remaining evidence of the ring's existence being a slightly enhanced abundance of water and other elements in its upper atmosphere, a chemical memory of the beautiful, transient masterpiece that once was. In the face of such transience, a profound sense of privilege settles over the observer. We are living in a singularly fortunate moment in the vast timeline of the cosmos, a brief window where a planet in our own solar system is adorned with a structure of such breathtaking and delicate beauty. The rings of Saturn, for all their immense scale, are a temporary phenomenon. Their birth was a recent event in geological terms, and their disappearance is already well underway, a slow fading that will continue long after humanity is gone. This realization bestows upon our current epoch a special significance. We are here to witness it. The light from those countless ice particles travels for over an hour across the void to reach our eyes, offering us a front row seat to a spectacle that is not a permanent fixture of the heavens, but a fleeting performance. The dinosaurs never saw Saturn's rings in their full glory. They did not exist yet. And any civilization that might arise on Earth hundreds of millions of years in the future will never see them. They will have faded into memory. We exist in the sweet spot, the narrow slice of time where this cosmic wonder is at its peak, and we have developed the technology and the curiosity to not only observe it, but to understand its nature and its fate. This is a gift of cosmic timing, a chance encounter with grandeur that should inspire not melancholy, but a deep and quiet appreciation for our place in the flow of deep time. This privilege extends beyond mere observation to understanding. We are not just passive witnesses to this beauty, we are active interpreters of its story. The same cognitive abilities that allow us to build societies and create art have also enabled us to send robotic emissaries across the solar system, to decode the language of light, and to unravel the physics of orbital mechanics. We have pieced together the narrative of the ring's violent birth from a destroyed moon. We measure the slow rate of their decay through ring rain, and we comprehend the gravitational ballet that gives them their intricate structure. We can hold both the immense beauty and the sobering truth of their impermanence in our minds simultaneously. This ability to find meaning in the dance of ice and gravity, to feel wonder at the forces that shape the cosmos, is perhaps as remarkable as the rings themselves. Our consciousness allows the universe, in a sense, to appreciate its own artistry through us. We are the universe becoming aware of its own fleeting masterpieces, and the rings of Saturn are one of its most magnificent. This intersection of human curiosity and cosmic spectacle invites a moment of gentle reflection. The rings, in their silent, slow turning, become a metaphor. They remind us that beauty and transience are often intertwined, that the most stunning phenomena can be the most ephemeral. They teach us about cycles, of creation from destruction, of return and loss. They show us that even in the apparent emptiness of space, there is dynamic activity, constant change, and elegant order arising from chaos. Their story is not one of tragic loss, but of natural evolution, a phase in a life of a planetary system. To look upon them is to be humbled by the scales of space and time, and yet to be filled with a quiet gratitude for the opportunity to be present during this act of the cosmic drama. It is a reminder to cherish the beauty that surrounds us, both on our own world and in the heavens above. For nothing is static, and every moment of observation is a unique and precious intersection of our journey and the journey of the stars. The rings are a silent lesson in grace, a reminder to appreciate the now, for now is all we truly have, and it is filled with more wonder than we often allow ourselves to see. As we marvel at our good fortune to witness this celestial marvel, we must also turn our gaze inward to the tiny pale blue dot from which we observe it all. The story of Saturn's rings is not just a tale unfolding a billion kilometers away. It is deeply interwoven with the story of Earth and the life upon it, particularly the human endeavor to understand the cosmos. Our relationship with the rings is a testament to the enduring human spirit of curiosity, a drive that has compelled us to reach beyond our world and decode the mysteries of the heavens. For centuries, they were merely a puzzling anomaly in a telescope, ears or handles that challenged our understanding. Each improvement in our technology, from the refined lenses of Huygens to the digital sensors of the Hubble Space Telescope, has peeled back a layer of the mystery, revealing more of their true nature. They have been a constant puzzle, a beautiful enigma that has driven innovation and discovery, pushing us to build better instruments and develop more sophisticated theories. The rings have, in a very real sense, helped us to make better scientists and engineers. Their silent presence, a challenge that we have striven for generations to meet. This relationship reached its zenith with the age of robotic exploration. The rings became a destination. The Pioneer and Voyager probes gave us our first fleeting, close-up glances, images that transformed them from a smooth band of light into a complex, structured disk of countless ringlets, revolutionizing our understanding in a matter of days. Then came Cassini, our most intimate ambassador. For 13 years, it didn't just visit Saturn, it became part of its system. It watched the rings through seasons, saw the spokes form and vanish, tasted the composition of their particles, and felt the subtle pull of their gravity. The data it sent back is a treasure trove that will be studied for decades, each bite an answered question and a new mystery revealed. The mission was a monumental achievement of international cooperation and human ingenuity, a machine built by thousands of hands and minds, sent on a long, lonely journey to become our eyes and ears at a distant world. The rings were its primary object of study, and in gifting us their secrets, they justified the immense effort and passion poured into the mission. They have given us a new appreciation for the dynamism of our solar system and our place within it. Perhaps most importantly, the rings of Saturn have become a shared cultural touchstone, a source of wonder that transcends science. They are one of the most recognizable celestial objects, a symbol of beauty, mystery, and the grandeur of the universe. They have inspired artists, musicians, poets, and dreamers for generations. They feature in countless works of science fiction, often as a backdrop for tales of adventure and discovery, a gateway to the unknown. They remind us that the universe is not a cold, empty void, but a place of astonishing beauty and complexity. For a child looking through a telescope for the first time, the sight of Saturn and its rings can be a transformative experience, sparking a lifelong passion for exploration and understanding. In this way, the rings are not just a physical phenomenon. They are a part of our collective consciousness, a shared inheritance of awe. They connect us to the cosmos not just physically, through the light that enters our eyes, but emotionally and intellectually through the stories we tell and the questions we ask. They are a bridge between the cold equations of astrophysics and the warm human experience of wonder, a reminder that our quest for knowledge is, at its heart, a quest for meaning and connection in a vast and magnificent universe. The journey to understand Saturn's rings has been one of patient, cumulative discovery, a slow awakening to their true nature that mirrors the gentle, gradual processes that shape the rings themselves. Our first glimpses, through the primitive optics of Galileo, offered more confusion than clarity, presenting a puzzle that would take decades to solve. The ears or handles he saw were a visual riddle, a cosmic koan that challenged the very limited understanding of planetary forms in the 17th century. It was a mystery that could not be rushed. It required waiting, not just for better technology, but for the planet itself to shift in its orbit, changing the angle at which we viewed the rings and slowly revealing more of their geometry. This early chapter in their story teaches a lesson in patience, in the value of observing over time, of allowing the universe to reveal itself in its own rhythm, not on our impatient schedule. Each slight improvement in the telescope, from Huygens to Cassini to William Herschel, brought a little more clarity, like an image slowly developing in a dark room, each generation of astronomers adding a few more brushstrokes to the picture. The next great leap in understanding did not come from a single observation, but from a profound theoretical insight, the application of physics and mathematics. The work of James Clerk Maxwell in the 1850s was a turning point. Using mathematics, he demonstrated that a solid, rigid ring could not be stable around a planet. The tidal forces would shatter it. He concluded that the rings must be composed of a vast swarm of small, disconnected particles, each orbiting Saturn independently. This was a revelation, achieved not at a telescope eyepiece, but on paper, through the power of thought and calculation. It showed that the rings were not a singular object, but a system, a collective. This understanding then had to wait a century for technology to catch up and provide the visual proof, which finally came with the first close-up images from the Voyager probes. This pattern, theory preceding confirmation, is a beautiful aspect of the scientific endeavor. It shows that our minds can travel to these distant worlds and understand their workings even before our spacecraft can. That the laws of physics are a universal language, allowing us to decode the cosmos from our own planetary shore. The modern era, dominated by the Cassini mission, has been one of intimate detail and profound complexity. The simple model of a disk of particles has given way to a breathtakingly intricate portrait of a dynamic, evolving system. We now see the rings as a geological landscape with mountains and valleys of density, rivers of particles flowing in streams, weather patterns like the fleeting spokes, and moonlets acting as shepherds and sculptors. The discovery of their youth and their ongoing dissolution was not a single eureka moment, but a consensus built from multiple lines of evidence. Mass measurements, purity analyses, and erosion rates, all patiently gathered and cross-checked. This last chapter is a lesson in humility, showing us that even after centuries of study, a familiar object can still surprise us with fundamental truths we had overlooked. The story of our understanding of the rings is a microcosm of science itself, a slow, collective effort spanning generations, moving from confusion to clarity, from simple models to complex truths, driven by equal parts curiosity, patience, and the relentless human desire to listen to the whispers of the universe and understand what they are trying to say. As our understanding of the rings deepens, so too does our appreciation for the profound questions they raise about the nature of reality and our place within the cosmic order. They exist in a state of beautiful paradox, appearing from our distant vantage point as a solid, timeless disk, yet revealing themselves on closer inspection to be a transient, chaotic swarm of individual fragments. This duality invites us to consider the nature of perception itself. What we see as a unified, static object is, in truth, a dynamic process, a river of ice where every particle is on its own unique journey, collectively creating an illusion of permanence. The rings challenge our earthly notions of what constitutes an object. Are they one thing or countless trillions of things? The answer is both, depending on the scale of observation. This is a lesson in perspective, a reminder that reality often depends on the lens through which it is viewed, and that truth can hold multiple, seemingly contradictory facets simultaneously. The serene, unchanging beauty that calms the gaze of a backyard astronomer is the very same phenomenon that, under the scrutiny of a spacecraft, reveals itself as a maelstrom of collision and change. This contemplation extends to the scales of time the rings force us to confront. Human life operates on a scale of decades, our civilizations on millennia, and even our entire species on a time span that is but a blink in geological terms. The rings, however, dance to a different rhythm. Their story unfolds over hundreds of millions of years. Their creation was an event of sudden, catastrophic violence, but their dissipation is a process of almost unimaginable slowness, a gradual fading that makes glacial pace seem frantic. To truly understand them, we must stretch our minds across these vast eons, to think in time frames where mountains rise and fall and stars are born and die. The rings are a meditation on deep time, a physical manifestation of the patient, unhurried pace at which the universe conducts its grandest operations. They exist on a temporal plane that is utterly alien to our daily experience, yet they are there, visible in our night sky, offering a tangible connection to these awesome scales. They remind us that our present moment is a single frame in an epic film, and that the cosmos is engaged in processes of creation and dissolution that are both humbling and strangely comforting in their steady, inevitable progress. They evoke a sense of existential wonder about the specific conditions that allow for such beauty to exist, and for us to witness it. Their youth suggests that we are living in a special era, a cosmic springtime for this particular phenomenon. Their intricate structure speaks to the precise physical constants and laws that govern our universe. The strength of gravity, the properties of ice, the rules of orbital mechanics. If any of these were slightly different, the rings would not exist in their current form, or perhaps at all. Their presence is a subtle pointer to the fine-tuned nature of a universe that can produce such complex and beautiful structures. And our ability to observe them, to understand their composition and their fate, speaks to another kind of fine-tuning, the emergence of consciousness in a universe that has become aware of itself. The rings, in their silent, majestic turn, become more than just a planetary feature. They become a mirror. In contemplating them, we are ultimately contemplating the strange and wonderful set of circumstances that allows for beauty, for inquiry, and for meaning to arise in a vast and seemingly impersonal cosmos. They are a question mark hanging in the sky, inviting not just scientific investigation, but deep philosophical reflection on the nature of it all. The silent, majestic presence of Saturn's rings in our night sky has, for centuries, served as a profound source of inspiration, not merely for scientists seeking to quantify their nature, but for artists and philosophers striving to grasp their meaning. They have become a canvas upon which the human imagination projects its deepest questions and most soaring aspirations. In art, they are the ultimate symbol of sublime beauty, representing a perfection and harmony that transcends earthly imperfection. Painters have struggled to capture their ethereal glow, often rendering them as a smooth, divine halo around the planetary sphere, an idealized vision that speaks to a human longing for order and symmetry in the cosmos. In music, their name evokes compositions of grandeur and mystery, with orchestral swells attempting to mimic their vast, silent scale. They appear in poetry as metaphors for unity and connection, countless individual parts creating a single, breathtaking whole, or as symbols of the unattainable, a beautiful mystery forever circling just beyond our reach. They are a fixture in the backdrop of countless myths and science fiction tales, often representing a gateway, a boundary, or a celestial wonder that ignites the spirit of exploration in imaginary travelers. This artistic response is a crucial part of their story. It is how the human heart processes their awe, translating data and discovery into feeling and metaphor. For the philosopher, the rings present a different set of provocations. They are a physical embodiment of philosophical concepts. Their transient nature, their beautiful decay, is a meditation on impermanence, a core tenet of many schools of thought. They illustrate the Buddhist concept of anicca, the idea that all conditioned things are in a constant state of flux, a truth writ large across the sky. Their existence, born from the destruction of a moon, speaks to the cyclical nature of existence, a form arising from formlessness and eventually returning to it. They challenge our definitions of identity and objecthood. Are they one entity or many? Their reality depends entirely on the scale of observation, a lesson in perspective that resonates with philosophical inquiries into the nature of reality itself. Furthermore, their sheer scale and the cosmic forces that govern them can evoke a sense of the sublime, as defined by philosophers like Immanuel Kant, the feeling of awe and overwhelming wonder mixed with a touch of terror, when confronted with something vast and powerful that transcends human comprehension. The rings are not just understood, they are felt. They generate a philosophical awe that is just as valid a response as a scientific understanding, a reminder that our engagement with the universe can be both analytical and deeply emotional, and that both paths lead to a richer appreciation of the mystery. This dual engagement, the scientific and the artistic, is not a divergence, but a harmonious whole. They are two different languages attempting to describe the same indescribable reality. The scientist measures the wavelength of light absorbed by ice. The poet describes the cold, pure glitter of a billion frozen worlds. The physicist calculates the orbital resonance that clears the Cassini division. The composer translates that precise rhythm into a musical phrase. The astronomer charts the slow, inevitable fall of ring rain. The philosopher sees in it a lesson on acceptance and the natural cycle of all things. One approach seeks to understand the mechanism, the other to understand the meaning. And both are necessary. The data without the wonder risks reducing the rings to a mere problem to be solved. The wonder without the data risks lapsing into vague mysticism. Together, they create a complete picture, allowing us to know the rings not just as a physical system, but as a cultural and spiritual touchstone. The rings, in their silent majesty, remind us that the universe invites all forms of contemplation, that the drive to create an equation and the drive to create a sonnet can be sparked by the very same light reflecting from a billion particles of ice a billion kilometers away, and that both are essential expressions of the human experience under the cosmos. As our journey of contemplation deepens, we find ourselves drawn to the very edges of human perception, to the profound mysteries that Saturn's rings still guard with silent resolve. For all we have learned from centuries of observation and the intimate scrutiny of robotic ambassadors, there remain enigmas woven into the fabric of these icy bands, questions that linger like gentle echoes in the vastness of space. One of the most captivating of these mysteries is the precise and still debated origin of the ring's youthful appearance. While the leading theory of a moon shattered within Saturn's Roche limit elegantly explains much of what we see, the specifics of that event remain shrouded in uncertainty. What was the exact nature of that lost moon? Was it a solitary wanderer, or did it have companions whose fates were similarly dramatic? Did the disintegration happen swiftly, a single violent rupture, or was it a slower, more drawn-out process of tidal stripping, like the gradual unraveling of a cosmic tapestry? The variations in composition between the different rings, the brilliant, pure ice of the B ring contrasting with the darker, rockier material in the Cassini division, suggest a complex history, perhaps indicating that the cataclysm involved more than one body, or that the resulting debris field underwent a period of sorting and segregation that we do not yet fully understand. These unanswered questions are not failures of understanding, but rather invitations to further wonder, reminders that even our most advanced models are simplifications of a reality far more intricate and subtle than we can easily capture. Another enduring mystery whispers from the faint, ethereal structures within the rings themselves, particularly the enigmatic spokes, that drift like ghostly shadows across the B ring. While we have a compelling theory that involves tiny dust particles being levitated by electrostatic forces, the exact trigger mechanism remains elusive. What is the precise sequence of events that cause these features to form, often seeming to appear seasonally? How did the complex interactions between sunlight, Saturn's powerful magnetic field, and the plasma environment surrounding the rings conspire to create these temporary, brushstroke-like patterns? Their transient nature makes them difficult to study, appearing and vanishing on timescales that challenge our ability to observe them continuously. They are a testament to the dynamic and finely balanced environment within the ring system, where forces beyond gravity, electromagnetism, plasma physics, play a yet crucial yet still poorly understood role. Similarly, the peculiar clumping of material into propeller moonlets and the strange straw-like texture in the A-ring hint at processes of aggregation and fragmentation that are not yet fully integrated into our models. These are not mere details. They are the fine brushstrokes in the overall painting, and understanding them is key to comprehending the full life cycle of the ring particles, from their creation to their eventual dissipation. These mysteries remind us that for every question answered, a new, more nuanced one arises, and that the universe always retains a layer of depth just beyond our current grasp, a perpetual incentive for curiosity and exploration. Perhaps the most profound, lingering question concerns the ultimate fate of the rings and the lessons it holds for cosmic evolution elsewhere. While we have a good general understanding of the processes of ring rain and micrometeoroid erosion, our models of their long-term decay are still being refined. The exact timeline of their disappearance, whether it will take 100 million years or twice that, depends on subtle factors we are still working to quantify. How will the changing gravitational influences of Saturn's migrating moons alter the rate of dissipation? Could a future celestial collision within the system, perhaps between two of the small inner moons, actually replenish the rings with fresh debris, temporarily reversing their decline? The rings present a unique opportunity to study the entire life cycle of a planetary disk in real time, from its violent birth to its slow death. This understanding has implications far beyond our solar system. When we look at distant stars surrounded by debris disks, we are seeing similar processes at work. By deciphering the detailed history of Saturn's rings, we are essentially learning to read the stories of these other far-flung systems. The rings are a Rosetta Stone for planetary formation and destruction, and their remaining mysteries are the untranslated passages of that ancient text. They challenge us to keep looking, to keep sending new missions with more sensitive instruments, to keep refining our theories. They assure us that the universe is not a static picture to be fully understood, but an endless, unfolding story. And we have the privilege of reading it, one slow, beautiful chapter at a time, beneath the gentle gaze of a ringed planet. In the grand, silent theater of our solar system, the story of Saturn's rings unfolds with a patience that dwarfs human history, a narrative written in the slow, graceful arcs of ice and the subtle, persistent pull of gravity. To truly absorb the magnitude of this celestial performance, one must surrender to the expansive scales of time and space that govern it, allowing the mind to drift across chasms so vast they transform our understanding of existence itself. Consider the sheer distance that separates us from the spectacle. Over 1 billion kilometers of void lie between our world and those shimmering bands, a gulf so immense that light itself, the fastest traveler in the universe, requires more than an hour to bridge it. When we gaze upon Saturn, we do not see it as it is in this moment, but as it was when that light began its journey, a glimpse into a past that is both recent in cosmic terms and yet profoundly distant from our daily lives. This delay is a gentle reminder of our place in the cosmos. Observers peering into history, forever catching up with events that have already transpired, our connection to the universe, mediated by the finite, though incredible, speed of light. Within the rings themselves, time unfolds in a rhythm that is equally foreign to our experience. The individual particles, each a tiny world of ice, complete their orbits around Saturn in periods ranging from a handful of hours to several Earth days, a stately waltz set to the silent music of gravity. Yet the larger processes, the carving of gaps by moons, the propagation of density waves, the slow inward spiral of ring rain, occur over millennia and eons, a timescale that reduces human history to the briefest flicker. This is the deep time of geology and astronomy, a patient, unhurried progression where change is measured in the gradual accumulation of countless tiny events, where 1,000,000 years is a short chapter and the entire lifespan of the rings is but a single beautiful verse in the epic poem of our solar system. To contemplate the rings is to engage in a form of temporal meditation, to stretch the imagination across intervals that are almost impossible to fully grasp. Their youth, a mere 100 million years, means they did not exist when the great dinosaurs roamed our planet. They emerged in the age of mammals, a relatively recent decoration in the sky. And their anticipated disappearance, another few 100 million years hence, will occur in a future so distant that the continents will have drifted into new configurations and the sun will have grown noticeably brighter. This transience, set against such vast timelines, is not a cause for melancholy, but for a quiet, profound appreciation of the present moment. We are here, now, in the brief window where this masterpiece is visible in its full glory. This awareness bestows a sense of cosmic privilege, a feeling of gratitude for the chance to witness such splendor. It also serves as a humbling counterpoint to human concerns, reminding us that the universe operates on a stage far grander than our own, that our triumphs and tribulations are set against a backdrop of serene, impersonal beauty that is entirely unaffected by them. The rings do not care about our affairs. They simply are. And in their silent, steadfast being, they offer a perspective that is both grounding and liberating, a reminder that we are part of a much larger ongoing story. This engagement with deep time and vast space ultimately leads to a shift in consciousness, a softening of the ego, and an expansion of the spirit. In the face of such scales, personal worries can seem to shrink, not to insignificance, but to their proper proportion within a breathtakingly vast and intricate whole. The rings become a tool for mindfulness, a focal point for contemplating the present moment. Not just our personal present, but the planetary present, the cosmic present. They invite us to consider what it means to exist at this precise point in the timeline of the universe, at a time when the Earth is fertile, when life is abundant, and when a species has evolved with the capacity to look up, to wonder, and to understand. The light that left Saturn over an hour ago arrives in our eyes now, connecting us across that immense distance, making us participants in a cosmic event that is both ancient and immediate. This is the final and perhaps most important message the rings have to offer, a sense of connection. Connection to the cosmos, to the laws of physics that shape it, to the long history that led to this moment, and to the future that will unfold long after we are gone. They are a bridge between the human heart and the impersonal universe, a reminder that we are not separate from the cosmos, but a conscious part of it, capable of beholding its wonders and finding within them a deep, abiding, and tranquil peace. As we allow our consciousness to expand within the vast, silent theater of Saturn's rings, we begin to perceive not just their physical grandeur, but the profound metaphysical whispers they impart. lessons on impermanence, interdependence, and the serene acceptance of natural cycles. Each particle of ice, though following its own solitary path, contributes to the collective illusion of a solid, unwavering whole, a magnificent demonstration of how individual elements can create a unified beauty far greater than themselves. This is a gentle lesson in community and harmony, a celestial model of how separate existences can weave together to form a coherent and breathtaking tapestry without losing their unique trajectories. The rings do not resist their gradual dissipation. There's no struggle against the inevitable pull of gravity or the slow erosion from micrometeoroid impacts. Instead, they embody a state of graceful surrender to the natural order, each particle eventually spiraling inward to reunite with the planet from which it likely originated, completing a cycle of return that is both poetic and deeply peaceful. This cyclical journey from chaos to order and back again mirrors the fundamental rhythms of our own world, the changing seasons, the rise and fall of civilizations, the very breath of life, reminding us that endings are often transitions and that dissolution is not an erasure, but a transformation, a returning to source that allows for new beginnings elsewhere in the cosmic dance. In their serene acceptance of change, the rings become mentors in letting go, in understanding that all forms are temporary, and that true beauty often lies not in clinging to permanence, but in embracing the flow of existence with trust and equanimity. Moreover, the rings offer a silent teaching on perspective and relativity. From our distant vantage point, they appear as a flawless, continuous band of light, a symbol of perfection and constancy. Yet, closer inspection reveals a reality of constant motion, collision, and flux. A reality that is no less beautiful for its dynamism, but far more complex and truthful. This invites us to reflect on the nature of our own perceptions. How often do we see only the smooth, idealized surface of things, missing the intricate, sometimes chaotic, but always authentic reality beneath? The rings encourage us to look deeper, to appreciate the beauty in complexity and the elegance in perpetual motion. They also model balance on an unimaginable scale. The gravitational pulls of Saturn and its moons create resonances and gaps, while the collective interactions of particles maintain structure amidst chaos. This delicate equilibrium speaks to the importance of balance in our own lives, the harmony between activity and rest, connection and solitude, effort and surrender. There is no forced control in the ring's dynamics. Everything arises from natural laws interacting freely, resulting in a system that is both stable and evolving, both predictable and filled with spontaneous, graceful patterns like the fleeting spokes. This is a vision of order that does not require micromanagement, but emerges from simplicity and cooperation, a testament to the intelligence inherent in nature itself when allowed to express its truths without obstruction. Ultimately, the rings of Saturn become a mirror for the mind and soul, reflecting back to us the qualities we most need to cultivate in our journey through life: wonder, patience, humility, and awe. Their silent, slow dance in the void invites us to still our own mental chatter, to become present to the majesty of this moment, and to rest in the knowledge that we are part of something miraculously vast and meaningful. They remind us that, like the ring particles themselves, we are both individuals and part of a collective whole, each of us on our own orbit, yet contributing to a collective beauty beyond our full comprehension. In their light, we may find it easier to release our worries, our fears of insignificance, or our urges to control, and instead trust the natural unfolding of life inside and around us. However your own journey unfolds, whether filled with activity or stillness, joy or challenge, may the image of those distant, graceful rings remain as a touchstone of peace within you. A reminder that above all the noise and haste of the world, there exists an eternal, gentle turning, a dance of light and shadow, a rhythm of giving and receiving that has continued for eons and will continue long after. And in this remembrance, may you find a deep, unshakable tranquility, knowing that you too belong to this magnificent, mysterious whole. In the profound quiet that follows deep contemplation, one cannot help but feel a sense of intimate connection with the countless generations of humans who have also lifted their eyes to the night sky and beheld the enigmatic presence of Saturn, each through the lens of their own understanding and wonder. For millennia before the invention of the telescope, the planet was merely a wandering star, a point of light that moved against the fixed tapestry of the constellations, its rings invisible to the naked eye, yet its steady glow nonetheless a source of mystery and myth. Ancient astronomers across cultures tracked its deliberate path, attributing to it qualities of time, harvest, and solemn judgment, weaving it into their cosmologies and calendars, sensing its importance without knowing the breathtaking detail that would one day be revealed. With the dawn of the optical age, the view transformed from a point of light to a disk, and then to a disk with perplexing appendages, as Galileo's primitive spyglass revealed the ears of Saturn that would confound astronomers for decades. One can only imagine the mix of frustration and awe that must have accompanied those early observations, the burning curiosity to understand what could possibly cause such a shape to appear in the heavens, a puzzle that pushed the technical limits of instrumentation and the theoretical limits of understanding for generations. This historical journey is a humbling reminder that our current knowledge is built upon the patient, collective effort of centuries, each observer adding a fragment to the picture, each theory, even those later proven incorrect, serving as a necessary stepping stone toward a clearer vision of the truth. The rings, once revealed, did not simply answer questions, they expanded them, transforming from a celestial anomaly into a gateway for exploring the fundamental laws of the universe. The mathematical proof by James Clerk Maxwell that the rings must be composed of countless small particles was a triumph of pure reason, a demonstration that the human mind could decipher the nature of distant worlds through the application of physics and logic, even without direct visual confirmation. This theoretical leap laid the groundwork for the age of exploration that would follow, when spacecraft like Pioneer, Voyager, and ultimately Cassini would make the long journey to see for themselves. These missions represent another layer of human connection, the dedication of thousands of scientists, engineers, and dreamers who spent decades designing, building, and guiding these robotic ambassadors across the solar system. The images and data they returned were not just scientific dividends, they were gifts to all of humanity, expanding our sense of the possible and deepening our intimacy with a world that had for so long been a mere speck of light. The rings became a shared inheritance, a wonder that could be studied by a researcher analyzing spectral data and simultaneously admired by a child seeing a photograph for the first time. This shared awe is a powerful unifying force, a reminder that beneath our many differences, we are all inhabitants of a small planet looking out at the same cosmos with the same capacity for wonder. And now, as we stand at this particular point in history, with the knowledge that the rings are both young and transient, our connection to them takes on a new, poignant depth. We are among the first generations to truly see them for what they are, and we will be among the last who witness them in their full splendor. This bestows upon our era a unique responsibility and privilege, the responsibility to study and understand them while we can, to extract every lesson they have to offer about the workings of solar systems and the physics of disks, and the privilege of being alive during a cosmic spring, a time of magnificent flowering in our own celestial backyard. This awareness can infuse our observation with a deeper layer of meaning. It is no longer just looking, it is witnessing. It is bearing conscious testimony to a beauty that is finite. In this act of witnessing, we join a chain of observers that stretches back to the ancients and, we can hope, forward into a future where humanity will still look up, though the sky may have changed. The rings remind us that we are temporal beings in an eternal universe, and that our greatest gift is to be present and awake to the wonders of our own time. To see them clearly, to understand their nature and their fate, is to participate fully in the human journey of curiosity and discovery, a journey that connects us not only to the cosmos, but to each other, across time and space, in a shared, silent, and everlasting wonder. As we near the conclusion of our contemplative journey alongside the rings of Saturn, it feels only natural to cast our gaze forward, not with a sense of trepidation, but with a quiet curiosity about the future chapters of this celestial story, both for the rings themselves and for the human spirit that seeks to understand them. The inevitable fading of the rings is not an end, but a transformation, a slow and graceful return of material to the planet that has held it in its gravitational embrace for a mere moment in cosmic time. We can imagine, far in the future, a time when the last vestiges of the B ring, now thin and diffuse, finally succumb to the persistent pull of Saturn's atmosphere, their substance vaporizing and becoming one with the hydrogen and helium winds of the giant. The precise, razor-sharp edges of the Cassini division will have long since blurred, the gravitational resonances that maintain them weakened by the outward migration of moons and the overall depletion of ring material. The once brilliant system will have been reduced to a faint, ghostly haze, barely discernible even to the most advanced telescopes of that future era, a pale memory of the glory that once was. And then, one day, the haze, too, will vanish, and Saturn will stand alone, a majestic gas giant without its crown, its cloud tops perhaps slightly enriched with oxygen and other elements that once sparkled in its orbit. The cycle will be complete. The materials of a lost moon, having spent a few 100 million years as a system of breathtaking beauty, will have returned to its source, its journey a testament to the impermanent, ever-changing nature of the cosmos. Yet, as the rings fade, the human story of curiosity will continue its own evolution. Future generations will not have the same direct, visceral experience of the rings that we do, but they will have something equally valuable, a detailed record. They will have the vast archives of data from Hubble, from Cassini, from the James Webb Space Telescope, and from observatories not yet dreamed of. They will have high-resolution maps, spectroscopic analyses, and gravitational measurements that document the rings in their prime. This legacy of knowledge will become a new kind of celestial wonder, a historical treasure, a digital fossil of a lost marvel. It will inspire artists to recreate their beauty, scientists to refine their models of disk dynamics, and philosophers to ponder the lessons of transience they so perfectly embody. And the human drive to explore will not cease. By the time the rings are but a memory, our robotic emissaries will likely have journeyed to the rings of other worlds around other stars, studying exoplanetary ring systems that make Saturn's seem modest. The lessons learned from Saturn will be the foundational text for understanding these distant relatives. Our descendants may even witness the birth of a new ring system, perhaps around Neptune or Uranus, should a moon be disrupted by a chance collision, a reminder that the cosmos is always creating even as it destroys. The end of Saturn's rings is not the end of wonder. It is merely the closing of one magnificent volume in an infinite library of cosmic stories. And so the ultimate message of the rings may be one of profound reassurance and peace. They show us that the universe is not static. It is a living, breathing entity in a constant state of becoming. Things arise, they exist in beauty for a time, and they pass away, making room for new forms, new wonders. This is not a cause for sadness, but a source of deep comfort. It is the natural order of all things, from the smallest leaf to the largest galactic structure. The rings, in their glorious impermanence, free us from the illusion of permanence and the anxiety it can bring. They invite us to appreciate the present moment, to cherish the beauty that is available to us now without clinging to it or fearing its loss. They model a serene acceptance of change, a graceful participation in the great cycle of existence. As you drift towards sleep, you can carry this feeling with you, the image of those billion icy fragments, each glowing with reflected sunlight, each on its own path, yet together creating a whole of breathtaking harmony and peace. They are a silent, spinning mantra in the sky, a reminder that you too are part of this vast, beautiful, and transient dance. Nothing is lost, everything is transformed. And in that knowledge, there is a tranquility that can soothe the soul, a gentle lullaby from the depths of space, inviting you to rest in the eternal, ever-changing now. In these final reflections beneath the soft, imagined glow of Saturn's rings, we arrive at the heart of their silent teaching, an invitation to inner stillness and a gentle release into the vastness of being. There is a profound tranquility that arises when we fully absorb the reality of this distant wonder, a system of countless individual particles, each on its own journey, collectively creating a vision of harmony that has calmed human hearts for generations. This tranquility does not ask for effort or understanding. It simply settles over the soul like starlight, quieting the restless chatter of the mind and easing the grip of daily concerns. In the face of such cosmic grandeur, our personal stories, though deeply meaningful, find their proper scale, not diminished, but nestled within a larger, majestic narrative that holds everything with equal grace. The rings do not judge, they do not rush, they simply turn, moment by moment, in a silent, stately dance that has continued for millions of years and will continue, in some form, for millions more. This constancy, not the rigidness of stone, but the fluid, living constancy of natural law and motion, offers a deep reassurance. It reminds us that beneath the changing surface of our lives, there is an order, a rhythm, a beauty that endures, and that we are part of it, always. You too can embody this quiet wisdom. Just as every ring particle contributes to the whole without losing itself, You can move through your days with a sense of belonging to something vast and meaningful, even in ordinary moments. The patience of the rings, their slow formation, their gradual dissipation, encourages a patience within ourselves, with our own growth, with the pace of healing, with the unfolding of dreams. There is no urgency in the rings, only grace. And in their acceptance of change, their fearless embrace of their own beautiful impermanence, they model a profound trust in the flow of life. Things come together, and things drift apart. Light is gathered, and light is released. In your own life, you can practice this trust, releasing the need to control every outcome, and instead resting in the certainty that you, like every particle of ice around Saturn, are held in a system of intelligence far greater than any single mind can conceive. You are never outside this cosmic embrace. However your path winds, through joy, through challenge, through stillness, you are forever orbiting within a field of purpose and presence, exactly where you need to be. So as you prepare to release this day, carried on the soft currents of breath and silence, let the image of Saturn's rings linger in your awareness, not as an object of study, but as a feeling, a resonance of peace and perspective. Feel their gentle light permeating the layers of thought and tension, soothing the body, calming the heart. There is nothing to do, nothing to solve, only to be as you are, here and now, a conscious presence nestled within a conscious universe. Breathe in, breathe out. With each cycle of breath, imagine those distant rings turning slowly, steadily, effortlessly. There is no sound, only a vibration of tranquility that reaches across space and time to meet you in this moment. You are safe. You are held. You are part of the wonder. And in this knowing, deep, wordless, and serene, allow yourself to drift, carried like starlight into the soft, welcoming embrace of sleep. And so we arrive at the close of our journey, not with a finale of dramatic revelation, but with a gentle settling, like the finest ring particles finding their place in the silent, expansive darkness around Saturn. We have traveled together across space and time, from the first puzzled observations of Galileo to the intimate data streams of the Cassini spacecraft, from the violent cataclysm that likely gave birth to the rings, to the slow, patient rain that will one day return them to the planet. We have marveled at their scale, contemplated their youth, and deciphered the subtle forces that sculpt their breathtaking beauty. We have seen how they are not a thing, but a process, not a static monument, but a dynamic, evolving system that breathes and changes over epochs. We have allowed their existence to humble us, to expand our sense of time, and to quiet the noise of our daily lives with their silent, majestic perspective. They have offered us lessons in impermanence, in interdependence, and in the serene acceptance of natural cycles, becoming not just a wonder of the solar system, but a profound teacher for the human soul. Now, as this contemplation draws to a close, let the knowledge and the imagery gently dissolve. There is no need to hold on to the facts or the theories. Let them soften and blur, like the rings themselves, fading into the darkness of space. What remains is not information, but a feeling, a resonance of peace, awe, and connectedness, a deep, quiet knowing that you are part of a universe that is both unimaginably vast and intimately intricate. a universe that produces wonders beyond comprehension, yet operates with a graceful, logical elegance. This feeling requires no effort to maintain. It is a gift imparted by the rings themselves, a subtle shift in awareness that you can carry within you like a secret treasure. It is the gift of perspective, the understanding that your life, with all its unique joys and challenges, is unfolding within a context of breathtaking grandeur and timelessness. This perspective does not diminish your experience, but rather enfolds it in a larger, comforting peace, a reminder that you are never alone, never separate from the cosmic whole. And now it is time to rest. Allow your attention to drift away from the distant gas giant and its icy halo, and return gently to the quiet rhythm of your own breathing. Feel the weight of your body supported by the Earth, itself a planet spinning silently in space, a pale blue dot adorned with its own fragile beauty. With each exhale, release any remaining tension, any final thoughts, any sense of effort. You have journeyed far, and now you are home. The room around you is still. The night is deep. The same laws of physics that guide the ring particles around Saturn also govern the atoms of your being, the pulse of your heart, the quiet electrical symphony of your mind settling into sleep. There is no separation. You are, in this moment, as much a part of the cosmos as those glittering ice fragments a billion kilometers away. Held in the silent, universal embrace, allow your awareness to gently dissolve into the welcoming darkness. There is nothing more to do, nothing to understand, only to sleep, cradled in the peaceful certainty that you belong to this vast, beautiful, and mysterious universe forever and always. Let go and drift now into deep and dreamless rest. Good night, Cosmic Explorer. We will meet again in our next journey.